So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very important session today on investing in the next generation skills for the future workforce. My name is Ayako Inagaki. I'm the Senior Sector Director of the Human and Social Development Sector Office at the Asian Development Bank, and I'm very pleased to open this discussion with such a distinguished panel, which I'm going to introduce to you shortly. So as we all know, the future of work is being rapidly reshaped by some global issues and challenges, namely the digital transformation, demographic shift, and then Asia and Pacific as well as Europe, I think, is also going through some demographic shift, meaning to say that you have young generation, but also you have aging population, right? So any discussions on the labor force skills development need to take into consideration. And as we all know, climate challenges is really putting a big challenges to the well-being of all of us, and particularly the most vulnerable populations. In the Asian and Pacific region, more than half of the world youth live in that region, so the stakes are especially high. So the labor market is evolving faster than many education systems can respond, and that, unfortunately, it creates skills mismatches. It also creates inequalities because the most disadvantaged populations and groups tend to be disadvantaged in accessing quality education and then to get a quality job, right? So how to address this challenge? And then, as we may have discussed this morning in the ceremony, there's a lot of opportunities. It's what we call untapped potentials that we also need to look into. So the Asian Development Bank has made education and skills, or human capital development, a cornerstone of the bank's support for inclusive economic growth. So our education portfolio is growing, and increasingly, we would like to focus on helping our member countries to build a future-ready systems. It means that we can still support some certain project, but how we can contribute to more an ecosystem of a robust education system. So emphasizing, for instance, skills for digital literacy or digital transformation, green skills, and I think a challenge for all countries, it's about how to make a stronger linkage between education, training, and the labor market demand. So we do work with government and partners, and when we talk about partners, it's more and more a diverse set of partners. It's international, regional partners, technical institutions, but very much about the private sectors, okay? To modernize the technical vocational education system, we support curriculum reforms, and we do invest in lifelong learning pathways. So this session today will provide us with a valuable opportunity to reflect on three key questions. First is, what are the most pressing challenges and priority for skills development of the world of today? And how are different countries and institutions across Asia as well as Europe respond with innovative policies and creative programs? And then number three is, what concrete partnership, both public and private, and investment can help us scale up solutions and then make the system more agile and inclusive to address the need of the younger generation as well as the existing populations, right? So we will explore three questions through, I would like to take us to three rounds of discussion, if possible. So first, we'll set the stage by identifying the core challenges and urgent priorities. Second, we'll hear from our panelists on what their institutions are doing and what we can learn from each other. This is about policy, this is about effective strategies, this is about innovation and investment. Then finally, we look ahead for actionable ideas and partnership that can drive collective impact. So now let's begin. I would like to welcome our panelists, and I would like to request each panelist to come one by one. The first panelist is Mr. Paolo Angelini, a representative of our host country, Italy, as well as this wonderful city of Milan. He is a member of the governing board and deputy governor of the Bank of Italy. In this capacity, he is also a member of the joint governing board of the Insurance Supervisory Authority. From October 2021, he has become a member of the Basel Committee. So Mr. Angelini's scientific papers on monetary policy issues, money market, credit rationing and business development, banks and interbank payment system have been published in numerous Italian as well as international journals. So we welcome Paolo. Second panelist is Mr. Fauzan Aziman, please. Fauzan is an accomplished professional with extensive experience in engineering and research. He is currently serving as the Director General, Research and Development, the Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Technology in Indonesia. He was a founder, director, and engineering director at Alloyd since February 2017. Fauzan also holds the position of vice director at the Nexta Research Center at the University of Oxford. And you will hear later he has also a lot of experience also outside of UK and as well within Asia. Fauzan has contributed to significant international research and development projects and partnership, demonstrating leadership in both academic as well as in the industry environment. So welcome, Fauzan. The third speaker, again from Europe, is Pilvi Tolsti. Please. Pilvi is the director of the European Training Foundation. Those of you working in the field of skills training in Europe, I think know her very well. So it's a European Union agency focusing on human capital development in partner countries and regions also outside of the European Union. Pilvi serves in a leadership and expert role in the field of education, learning, research, science, innovation, and public policy in Finland and globally since the 90s. Pilvi has extensive experience in employment, communication, and network policy, AI, digitalization, data politics, immigration, culture, and strategic planning of transport as well as climate policies. The next speaker is Rohit Tripathi. Please. Rohit serves as a Deputy Secretary at India's Ministry of Education, where he spearheads initiatives in the educational technology sector. With 15 years of service, he has built extensive experience and expertise across multiple strategic sectors, and that include energy infrastructure, railway engineering, government communications, as well as education policy implementation. Rohit holds a Bachelor of Technology degree from the Indian Institute of Technology, Varanasi, and he had also an academic journey with a Master in Data Economics and Development Policy from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the USA. So welcome, Rohit. Then the next speaker from Europe, again here, is Bertrand Walkner. Bertrand is a deputy CEO of the Agence Française de Développement since February 2019. He served as a chief of staff of the State Secretary to the Minister for Economy and Finance, and he occupied several positions with the French Treasury, BPI France, La Poste, and CNP Assurance. Bertrand also served as Deputy Chief of Staff to the Foreign Trade State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He brings international experience working for both the public and private sector internationally. So welcome, Bertrand. The last speaker is my colleague, Shanti Jagannathan. Shanti is the director of the practice team education with ADB and has over 30 years of experience in international cooperation program in school education, TVET, and higher education. She leads the education policy and strategy work, providing support to ADB's technical assistance program and the lending operation in education and skills development. So her work engagement have been in over 30 countries in Asia, the Pacific, Europe, as well as North America. So as you see, we have a panel with diverse experience, so I'm pretty sure that we're going to have a very lively and fruitful discussion. So for the audience, I would like to encourage you to participate as actively as possible. Of course, you can raise your hand. But at the same time, you can use the QR code, which is going to be projected on this slide that is coming up. So you can ask your question, your comment, and express your interest to follow up this conversation. So one thing that we need to be realistic is that we have only 1 hour and a half. It's going to be very difficult to answer to all questions, but the objective is also at the end of the day is how to build a robust network of Europe and Asia institutions, right? So I would like really to encourage everyone to send your question and comment to the link, and then we can follow up from each institution as well as ADB helping that. So QR code is not coming, later on maybe. Okay, so, here we are. Okay, so meanwhile, I would like to start our discussion, and the question will be addressed to all panelists, and this is going to be very challenging because I'm going to ask in 3 minutes to answer 3 questions. The first question is there one thing it is really certain, that the future of labor market is evolving, it's uncertain. And so is the need of the workforce. So from your point of view, what is the most pressing challenges in education and skills development to prepare the youth for the job of the future? The second part of the question, what do you consider to be the most pressing priorities in addressing what we may so-call rigidities and the bottleneck in education and training system in responding to the diverse needs of the labor market? And if you have time, if you can share 1 or 2 effective strategies that could make institutions and people future ready. And third part of the question, from the point of view of your own institution and organization, what kind of policies and action would be most promising in strengthening human capital base for the job market of tomorrow? What kind of partnership and tied up will help for this? And if you could please, from your experience, also, if you can bring up how we can partner with the private sector, I think that would be excellent. So with this, let me sit down, and then perhaps I'll start with Paolo.
Thank you very much, Ayoko, for the kind words of presentation too. So let me give a shot at these three questions. I fully concur with the statement that nothing is certain in labor demand in the future, with possibly one qualification, that is that technological progress to which you hinted, particularly in the fields of artificial intelligence and automation, is likely going to be a key driver of what we are going to witness in the future. In Europe, in all the largest economies, the job vacancy rate is notably higher in the ICT sector than in the other sector, which implies that demand for degrees in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are clearly going to have an easier time when they enter the job market. With this premise, let me offer two remarks from the central banker perspective, not the perspective of an expert in education. Clearly, dominance of technology, that is one thing that we will witness in the future as we are witnessing today, but I think that one other important development that strikes me as I see events unfolding is the speed with which things happen these days. And extreme speed in all fields of our lives implies attendant uncertainty. In an environment of this sort, my perception is that the workers' ability to adapt to changing environments are becoming more important relative to a given skill set. That doesn't mean that education and knowledge is not going to be important, but I think today, relative to the past, the knowledge, the bulk of knowledge with which people with a degree come out of school is becoming slightly less important relative to their ability to adapt to new context. In other words, a nimble worker that is probably less knowledgeable is going to be more valuable than a very knowledgeable worker that is less nimble. And this regardless of the specific field of expertise of the workers. So I think that the education system should try to work toward giving students more nimbleness, teach them to become more agile, more adaptable. Adaptability and flexibility is a feature that most of us are born with. We have a given capital of adaptability, but again, the education system can indeed help us develop the skill like any others. The second consideration that comes to mind concerns on the job training. The technology and the rapid change that we are seeing, together with the aging of population to which you refer to in your initial remarks, means that we are going to be working longer lives and that we can no longer afford to stay with a given set of skills learned at school and develop them gradually during our working life. We need to give more emphasis to this latter part, on-the-job training. That is always has been a necessity, but is becoming more important today relative to the past. So I think the ADB might have a role in fostering continuing education and training of adult workers going forward. Let me close with two anecdotes from my experience at the Bank of Italy. One is about on-the-job training. Over the last 5 years, we started programs with universities, Italian universities, in order to offer our employees high-level 2 years, typical 2 years courses that are compatible with on-the-job, basically, duties. So far, we've been working on data science and on international relations, but we plan to expand these programs depending also on demand on our employees, who, of course, by doing this, acquire human capital, but are also subject to more stress, basically, because they have to manage both lives. The second remark concerns our hiring process. Traditionally, we at the Bank of Italy, we have been focusing on knowledge. We're very knowledge intensive. We go through public tests to hire people, to hire employees, and we ask a lot of information for them. And this has happened historically, basically. Over the last 5 years, we have been giving more weight in our hiring process to soft skills, and we have also broadened the realm of degrees that we hired. Basically, we used to hire most people from economics degrees, legal experts, and statisticians. Nowadays, we had increased, broadened again this space to people expert in AI, cybersecurity, engineering, as well as communication, human resources, even graphic, multimedia, real estate experts, and even some psychologists that can be helpful in our job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paolo. I think in 3 minutes, he gave us already the foundation of what the education system need to do, right? It's about flexibility, adaptability, not only about degrees and so on. You talk about on-the-job training. I think it's also the concept of lifelong learning for adult workers, whether you work or you're not working, but you're constantly can learn. No? So on-the-job training. On on-the-job training, thank you very much for bringing, excellent example of the Bank of Italy on these 2 years. I don't know whether you can get degrees, and also the perspective that you're recruiting people from multiple disciplines. So that's really an excellent example. Thank you very much, Paolo. So over to you, Fauzan. Anything that you can share with us from your experience, higher education in Indonesia?
Yeah. Thank you, Ayoko. To give a little bit of context about Indonesia. So Indonesia is an archipelagic nation. So we do have around 17,000 islands, 280 million populations with tertiary education students around 10 million. We have around 4,500 universities across the country with 300,000 academics. So with that, it is a challenge in itself. But let me start with conclusion first and then going backwards on how we can get where the conclusions could be. So we think that what we need to do is to adapt global best practices to the specific local context to us and prioritize what outlined within our national priorities. So understanding what we need, but then still building partnerships. So that is the conclusions that we're thinking of. Now I'm bringing to the challenges. The first challenge that we see is the challenge on the skill mismatch. So this is driven as well with the gaps. So the gaps in our case is the theory and practice. So the theory that taught in universities, vocational schools, are not necessarily what needed by the industry. So this is a contradictive to the needs of vocational employment, as the data says that in Indonesia, the highest unemployment contributed by vocational schools. So this is indeed a big challenge to us. And then the emerging skills gap that Paolo just mentions, because the train is so fast that even the drivers couldn't probably keep the pace, and you could imagine how the passengers will follow. So we need to build an ecosystem. So an ecosystem is a big issue that we are building. And second is on the quality and relevance of educations. It is just because of curricula is difficult to get updated as the pace of the technologies and also the human development goes. And a coordinated investment around this is another challenge to us. It is just because of human capital development and investment. In terms of output of investment, doesn't necessarily meet the timeline that the investment requires. So we end up with slow curricular movement and then subpar infrastructure, and probably as well inaccuracy in terms of the medicine to the problems where the investment should be. And the key to this for us is lack of industrial collaborations. So the public partnership to us, something that we would like to enhance. And then we also see that the future transitions of green and digital skills, something which is disruptive, could pose two parts to us. One is challenge, but also perhaps opportunity, because in every country, everyone cares about changes. And then with us, we may be able to catch up a little bit because there is no status of quo anymore in terms of industrial powerness. So this could be something that if we plan strategically, we may end up with a better gradient of growth. And in terms of the second part, a little bit of agile strategies that we are working on is on shifting our strategy to a truly demand-driven system, meaning that we listen to our community and then learn basic problem statements, something I think in Europe is very common, but something in Indonesia we are building, which is a culture of scientific culture, understanding problem, and then work on solutions to the problem, and then build solutions based on it. As simple as that is something that we are heavily relies on teachers. So we are building partnership on improving our teachers and to develop as well and scale micro-credentials. So this is something that we are trying to build, what's so-called the lifelong learning framework. I think we can learn a lot from Europe on this. And then recently, so we've been working with ADB and then thankful to ADB support that we start building an ecosystem in university, a co-creation place where teaching factories can be built and industry can also build ecosystem within universities, what we call science technopark. So ADB's been helping building this ecosystem, so something which we intend to work with industries and then bring more ecosystem to our academics. And the last point on the type of partnerships that we are looking for. First is the type of partnership that we can be strategic between the university-industry partnership with international collaboration, especially on benchmarking and also on building joint program. And then I think the last point for us is that we understand the importance of infusions. So infusions means that it's not necessarily just sending our students abroad or our professors abroad, but the interactions, the quality of interactions within that exchange is key. So it doesn't necessarily to be long programs, but shorter programs, improving the quality of exchange is something that we are after. So those are the agile strategies and a few of partnership that we are looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fauzan. In terms of challenges, I don't know whether in some also countries in Europe or university, you're facing the same problem like TVET graduates having a high unemployment rate. Sometimes in some countries in Asia, universities graduate cannot find a job, right? So it really shows the fundamental issues of skills mismatch on how we have to make this higher education to be more demand-driven. And then this, in terms of strategies, Fauzan mentioned Technopark, Science Technology Park, and perhaps this is something that in Europe also they have a lot of experience, good or bad, I don't know. and this is also maybe something that, people can exchange lessons. And thank you very much for the suggestion that is about exchange program. It's not about the length, but it's also the quality of the interaction and what you get really out of it. No? So I think this is something that all of us, when we're going to talk about partnership and networking, we can think about that. So now, Pilvi, with this, over to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon also on my behalf. First, to give a context for our framework from which I speak. So I represent here European Union and a special agency of EU called ETF, European Training Foundation, which is to be working in the field of human capital development in countries outside European Union, so as part of the external services, both globally in the thematic field as with Asian Development Bank, and then with countries that are listed as our so-called partner countries. We've been around as an agency for 30 years. We tend to call ourselves as being at prime age, and I say this as a joke, but also to make the point that the 30 years of experience of working with different countries in transition, in development. So I think if what I'm going to say as sort of lessons learned, or probably the problems to be solved, relate to this capacity of being an EU kind of compass, strategic knowledge partner, broker, connector between different countries, different regions, bringing the sort of EU practices and analysis. We do analysis and monitoring, foresight, knowledge work, and policy dialogue with the places where we work. I'm trying to bring together your three questions, sort of 2+1 answer. So the two first, so challenge and priority, I think in my answer can go together and very much echo and resonate what was said by the previous speakers. If we're looking at the field of education and skills, human capital development, probably the biggest challenge of our time is in fact the mentioned pace of change. So we have green, we have digital, we have aging populations in many parts of the world. But I think also the priority in a way is related to time. So we have to understand the paradox of time we have here. And what I mean by that, we have two different levels. So it's not, we have still the fundamental need for core competencies, fundamental skills, and that's the role of education systems. And then we have at the same time the need to have really the solutions of today for the skills mismatches. And the paradox comes from the fact that you have to do both at the same time, and you can't say you need either or. Unless you have the foundational skills, you cannot do reskilling and upskilling later. Those of you who have followed Europe in the past years will know that there was a year of skills that closed last year, and currently one of the key policies of the new Commission, the Union of Skills. So Europe is taking this dimension of skills very seriously. But one has to understand that it comes with a long background also with educational public systems and policies. So the skills are built sort of on top of that understanding. And there, if I give you an example why I think this is such a fundamental element to understand this, in a way, paradox that you need both long-term and short-term. Let us take the green skills. Very often we just talk about the title, we need more green skills, but what does it actually mean if we unpack it? Well, we have early education and primary education. There it's about awareness, just what is it to be sustainable, what it means to understand planetary limits. That's with the children. Then we come to secondary education, it's about core competencies. And only then we can come to the tertiary education or adult education, upskilling, which is then about very specialized skills and professions. And you need the whole, all three, the whole chain needs to be there in order for us to tackle the green skills. So my message really strongly is the challenge and the priority is in this, understanding the different roles, the different sort of parts play here. And here I think bringing the private sector to and both when we are shaping our curricula for the sort of 2030s and 40s need, as well as the immediate needs is really fundamental. And finally, on your question about sort of partnerships and also solutions, couple of examples that stem both from the work we do at ETF and also from my own history. I used to serve, luckily, as a state secretary, both for education and employment in my life, so it's kind of has been always bringing these together. I think one important partnership we've seen in the past years is actually with knowledge organizations like us and with the international financial institutions like the ADB. So bringing really the monitoring knowledge together with the investment decisions. And I think the work that you do there and that we've done together is really valuable and needs to continue. Another type of policy, youth guarantee, a European policy that is currently being implemented, as we sometimes say, from Kiev to Thailand, outside actually European Union. So it's a policy that tackles both youth unemployment, but also the lack of education. So trying again to see both sides and the needs there, and happy to talk more, fundamentally bringing the private and public together, so the job offers to the needs, the skills needs. And perhaps a third one, different ways where we bring the employment and education together through sectoral skills councils, for instance. You have those in, for instance, Egypt is an interesting country, or in Finland there is a new service center for education and employment. So whenever you manage somehow structurally to bring together the education and labor, education and employment, typically the magic starts to happen because it's the demand and the supply that are in the same table. So that would be my 3 cents for this. First, to recognize the timing difference in fundamental skills and fundamental core competencies and the upskilling needs, and then to look for global solutions, again, through bringing these 2 segments together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Pilvi. It's based on your long years of experience in this field. And indeed, fundamental skills or foundation skills are really important. And it is related to maybe what Paolo said about adaptability. If you don't have a strong, really robust foundation skills, maybe it's hard to be agile and adaptable. No? So that's maybe something to think about and to have further discussions. And thank you for bringing all the experience on bringing the private partners. The notion of sector skills councils is also, I'm sure that these exist in many countries in Europe, but in Asia as well, as in India can bring a lot of good and challenging experience as well, and Indonesia also. So that's also something to, could be sort of part of topics for networking and exchanging lessons, right? Thank you. So over to you, Rohit.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for organizing this. It's great to be discussing the issues that we deal with daily at the Ministry of Education in India. And what I'm going to say about the most pressing challenges, I think, is going to reflect a lot of what Paolo, Pilvi, and Fozan have said, which indicates the widespread nature of the challenges and the global nature of the challenges. So the first problem that we deal with in India in particular is the employability and skill gap. So only 8% of the graduates from the Indian education system are doing jobs which are commensurate with their qualifications. So most of them are doing something which is below their qualifications. A quarter of the jobs are going to be transformed by the technology that are going to shape the next few years. And that also ties up very neatly with the gestational issue which the education ecosystem has always dealt with. So when higher education institution is thinking about their skills, they need to think about 4 or 5 years down the line. But that problem has become even more intractable to solve because of the rapidly shifting sands. So I think that the problem becomes even worse to kind of predict what will be the market demand and what will be the skills that the graduates need to have. The second main problem is the access. So the access to quality education. Again, globally, but particularly in India, there's a thin layer of quality educational institutions which are imparting good education, but then the rest of us are in the education institutions which are not keeping pace with the changing landscape of industry. And to deal with these kind of problems, I think the foremost strategy for policymakers is to design an ecosystem which is flexible in its very design. So, for example, the national education policy in India, which was framed in 2020, allows for multiple entry exit, which wasn't there before. It allows for dual degrees. It allows for multidisciplinary education. It brings together vocational education and skills gained through any academic or prior learning on one platform. It establishes an equivalence. So that sort of inherently builds the flexibility in the system for the graduates to be able to deal with the changing landscape. And actions to transform these policy decisions into concrete reality. I think the government of India, what we are doing is to build digital infrastructure to serve the masses at this scale. So Academic Bank of Credits, for example, in education, allows you to have a digital passport which tracks your educational journey throughout your life, no matter whether you're in a formal education system or not. And that creates the base layer on top of which the educational services and markets can be built. The job of the government, which we are very acutely aware of, is to make this market thick so that there are enough suppliers of the service, educational services, as well as enough demand. And also to make this market uncongested. So that would be by setting standards, setting quality benchmarks, setting evaluations. So when I'm logging in my system and I'm looking at 10,000 courses, there should be a curated pathway for me to find my own way, which is personalized for me. So these kind of actions can kind of propel us into the next phase of the industry demand. The second strategy, which the government of India in particular, but I think it has been echoed across the panel, is pursuing is to collaborate very closely with the industry. So when it comes to on-the-jobs trainings, there are whole suites of schemes which provide apprenticeships. So that reduces the search cost for the industry to find good talent. The National Apprenticeship Training Scheme, the National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme, all of these provide the students to gain the on-the-job training in the establishment. It reduces the friction and the search costs for the industry to find and build a talent pipeline. So that, I think, is the other part of the strategy that we have been trying to follow. And private sector, as has been said before, is our partner in that. And I think going forward, if we can kind of build these pathways and build these infrastructure which can be scaled, which can be interoperable, I think that would be the good way to go.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rohit, to share this experience from India. Then indeed, if you have to wait for 4 or 5 years to change the curriculum and, train the teachers and run the course, by that time it's already obsolete, right? So, and then you're showing a lot of agile and flexible strategies on how to address this sort of, for me, it's an eternal problem of running after, what's the next urgent need for skillings for everyone. So that's and the experience of bringing the private sector. So over to you, Bertrand, from your perspectives, please share your insight.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you to my colleagues for raising the issues of adaptability. The fact that those are global issues, and I think it's very interesting to hear voices from Indonesia, from India, your views for the European Union, but who works with several countries. So I think you also embed these kinds of considerations in the comments that you made. So it's fascinating to see how we are all reflecting on these rapid evolving challenges and the questions that raises for us. So in my intervention, I'll speak both as a representative of a public development institution and as a parent, because I have 4 kids, and the connection between the education of young children and what will happen when they apply for new jobs, I think is very closely intertwined in what we are discussing. In the discussions we are having with our partners, there are three things that strikes me. The first one, we once had a discussion with somebody who described the working environment in Europe as three different periods. The first one, beginning of the 20th century, was a period where workers were valued for their technical ability to replicate throughout the day one very simple gesture. This is what made their value, this is what they were recruiting for, and this is the kind of work that was shaped by the Industrial Revolution. After the Second World War, the value of people was more in the expertise and in the knowledge they had built and they had acquired over their life. It doesn't mean that the previous one had completely disappeared, but a new kind of competencies had emerged on the basis of the knowledge that you acquire in a specific field, be it water resource management or forest management or energy, gas, buildings or so on. So that this is how it evolved from the first to the second phase. And the third phase was the ability to deal with complexity. Complexity being incorporating into your wastewater treatment plan gender issues, biodiversity protection issues, energy production issues as well, and looking at how people are dealing with those issues in Colombia, in Asia, and in other countries. And this is the type of profiles that we are recruiting today at AFD, looking for people with the ability to manage complexity, to manage information from different sources, and being able to synthesize them and to present in the end projects that will be approved by our board because we've been able to deal with various and different challenges. And now that artificial intelligence is there and is more and more accurate, we see an environment and a working environment where complexity is dealt with by those artificial intelligence algorithms. They provide the information that were provided before by people who had that ability to synthesize and to look after various sources of information, and they do it in a much more comprehensive ways than what human people were being to do. So it raises a question of what would be the value of people in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And here there's a big question mark, whether it be making decisions, will it be the kind of people, then the kind of competencies, skills that we will be recruiting people for? Will it be something else? We don't have the answer, but we think, we see that this is the kind of questions that people are asking. The second issue that we discuss with foreign partners, still referring to artificial intelligence, is what has to be incorporated into the curriculum of people, of young students, as far as AI is concerned. My daughter prepares her lessons and prepares her the presentations she has to make at school with AI softwares. So it goes very rapidly. Sometimes it makes mistakes. I help her correct them. But in the end, she is not trained at synthesizing and looking for information. And my question, and the question we share with partners, is whether it's important for children to be taught to continue looking for information, or whether this is simply something that has no importance anymore, and that because algorithm will continue to do it. If you look at simple calculation, 2 + 2, 2 × 6, and so on, calculators can do it, but we still are asking our kids at school to train their brain with simple calculations, and we still think it has value, whereas we have very powerful cell phones and other types of instruments that can make it for us. So there's the balance to find between what has to be taught to children and what tools as powerful as artificial intelligence will bring to them. And in the end, those fundamentals, as was mentioned by Pilvi, have to be identified to prepare children for their job environment, to prepare them for being adaptable, and to prepare them from upskilling and reskilling. So it's a big challenge, I think, for us to identify the core competencies and the things that still need to be done for youth and for children to be taught with. And the last issue, which is very important for our partners and for us, is the environmental issues. How do we prepare the next generation to be environmentally engaged, committed, without shaping anxious, highly stressed people because they think that their gesture has no impact on the environment, because you need 9 billion people to put their plastic waste into a trash, and that being just one person to do it is not powerful enough. So here again, there's an issue at what we can do to teach that to children, and how that will shape their gesture, their mobilization, their commitment, so that in the future they will either create companies that will work on those issues and that will have a significant impact, or they will join ADB because they know that ADB is strongly committed in protecting the environment. So those are the three issues that are at stake, and that we think are very important to be dealt with very carefully to prepare for the next job, the next generation of skills that are required. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bertrand. I think you touch upon a very, very important point for anyone who is interested and has worked in education and then training systems. So again, the importance of core competencies, or what are really the foundation skills that every citizen or every person should acquire. And then it's interesting that you mentioned about now that, of course, workers and people ask to have the ability to embrace complexities, right? Which I guess in every sphere and in every sort of segment of population, world is so complex, but so you need to have the skills to embrace this complexity. And the last point, and I hope, Shanti, you can bring it up also as topic of exchange and partnership, is the how populations can be environmentally engaged. In a sense, it's to maybe to take it positive, right? It's the opportunities to take action as youth, as child, as young adult, or working adults in how you contribute to sustainability and the world to come, which is challenging in a sense because of the sustainability issues. So Shanti, may I ask you, because there are so many important things that came up, maybe your role is also to sort of, not to summarize, but to, from what you have heard from the panelists, what can we do? You know, I think it's really maybe a good question to ask you.
Thanks, Ayako. In terms of skills for jobs, I mean, let me start with two challenges and one priority that you mentioned at the beginning, and also some agile strategies that are also coming up from the other speakers. The first one is like the two challenges are really very persistent. They've kind of endured over some time. The first is around unpredictability, skills shortages, and skills mismatches. Like almost a decade back, in 2016, the World Economic Forum predicted that 65% of primary school children will be in jobs that don't currently exist. So, and other global surveys have kind of shown the problems of unpredictability, problems of skills mismatches, whether it's the Economist surveys by the Economist, the manpower global shortage surveys, which have shown that, especially in the Asia and the Pacific region, employers are crying out for skills shortages and skills mismatches. On the other hand, coexisting simultaneously are jobs that are not coming to young people. So it's really a sort of a double whammy in a sense, and this problem has persisted over years. So we're really looking at skills development at scale, but at a quality that employers are seeking. The second is around the challenges of digital transformation that everybody has talked about, the sort of the rise of advanced technologies that have influenced the marketplace in such a significant way. So oftentimes we think about technologies or AI as if something we need to prepare for in the future. But if we think about it, the future is already here. So I was just looking at some statistics. In 2023, 70% of the robotics installations were in Asia. And going forward, between 2025 and 2030, the industrial robots that will be installed will be actually, most of that will be in the Asia and the Pacific region. So the problem is not for tomorrow, it's already here today and calling for actions today. And how do we do this? We cannot really do this with the same tools that have been used in the past. We really need to think about much more agile strategies, Ayako, that you mentioned at the beginning. So the workforce participants all really need to have, at the very least, a minimum digital standard, which also came out of the ADB LinkedIn survey on digital skills. The third is an opportunity that I want to mention. You know, how we look at investing in skills as a way to serve the larger development goals in the region. So, you know, let me mention 2 or 3 areas. The first one would be in the health sector. A few days ago, I was in a panel on health workforce at the World Health Summit. And I was an outlier to talk about the health workforce development. All the others came from the health and hospital management kind of background. And they were all saying quality of care is so difficult to assure. And education systems now really need to partner with health systems to ensure that the quality of care is addressed through improved training and improved education, which is in tune with the kind of technologically infused medical services that exist now. The second is around climate, right? Climate resilience is such an abiding topic that cuts across all sectors, all disciplines, calling out for new types of skills, new types of education programs that will help the young people to equip themselves adequately to meet the challenges of the future. So by investing smart, by investing in a skilled workforce, we can really make quality healthcare happen, which lead to high productivity. We can also make climate resilient technologies become more pervasive. We can also assure through this mechanism good jobs and sustainable growth. So in terms of like the more agile strategies, I really feel like the first is around making credentials more co-owned between the training institutions and the private sector. It's no longer enough that training institutions will certify and the private sector doesn't have a role to play. So private sector benchmarked and market-facing credentials are really important. The second on digital transformation is that we go beyond the 4 walls of the training institutions. We offer digital capacities, digital training, short cycle courses, hybrid learning, and all these opportunities are really important to scale up and combine with more traditional means. And the third is around multidisciplinary training programs. The complex problems of society call for interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approaches, which currently are at a lack. So many universities have started doing this, but we need to do a lot more of these things. So I think this also came out from some of the panel discussions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Shanti, for again this very important point. And that multidisciplinary approach, it's maybe in the university, it's also how Bank Italy is also hiring its employees. And I think it's a very important aspect as the skills needed well, it's multidisciplinary. You really need a wide range of skills. You mentioned about healthcare, and I think in Asia and the Pacific, it's healthcare. It's probably slightly maybe even broader. It's long-term care, or it's what we call a care economy. As population is aging, there's a wide range of care that populations are needed, and then it means that you have a workforce to work in this specific sector as well, right? So, okay, thank you very much. This is excellent. So maybe, yes, we still have time for a second, right? So maybe the second round of question to be slightly more specific. You want to ask a question?
Yeah, I would like to ask a question.
You want to ask a question? Why not? Go ahead.
No, it's not the time.
Yeah. Would you allow me to go for a second round, or is it an urgent question? You know what? You can whisper the question to Manuela, and then we make sure we answer. Okay. So now I will like to ask a question to Paolo as a banker, right? So, because the future of job will be influenced by today investment in energy efficiency, manufacturing that is sustainable, right? Digital transformation, as we said, and advanced technology. So what kind of optimal monetary and fiscal policy that can help finance the much needed investment in skills development to meet the employer's expectations? Anything that you can share as a good example or lessons learned, or what is the Banca d'Italia experience in providing technical assistance to other banks, right? And the supervisory authorities in the area that links human capital development and economic growth in Italy or elsewhere.
Thanks a lot. I'll choose the simple part of this broad question. Simple part concerns in my view, the monetary policy part. You cannot ask monetary policy to do things that it was not designed to do. So monetary policy should, I think, be left out of this framework. When you talk about fiscal policy, you open up a huge realm of course, of policies. Being well known that investment in human capital generate externalities, and therefore it is clearly an area in which public money can be invested, and if well invested, it pays for itself in the longer run. So clearly the state could do things about the public education system, which is a fixture in virtually every country in the world, as well as indirectly working on tax credits or subsidies. And again, let me tackle the easy part of the question, which is what the Banca d'Italia does on technical assistance. For those of you who are not familiar with technical assistance, basically technical assistance is about central banks teaching to other central banks who are in a different stage of development in their journey. And this does not imply central banks in advanced economies teaching to emerging economies only. This is clearly a key part of the job, but it is also about central banks sharing information among each other, because some of us are more advanced in certain areas and some of us are less advanced. So the topics that we more frequently addressed in our experience are the traditional ones for a central bank: monetary policy operations, typically, banking supervision, financial stability, central bank governance, and payment system, which is the basic tenets of central banks. But more recently, we have been broadening up, in line with what I was saying before, broadening up the spectrum of things and topics that we deal with. So AI is one topic, big data, data science, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies is a very fashionable topic on which in Europe we are making good progress, and the Bank of Italy is in the front runner on this front. We also work on financial inclusion, consumer protection, and also climate change that has already come up in our discussion several times. So as I said, the beneficiaries are, of technical assistance are central banks and supervisory authorities. This is mainly the people we deal with. And so far, during our fairly long experience of over 30 years, we have been working with institutions from around 60 countries, including EU members, the European countries that have not yet accessed the EU. And there have been 19 ADB members, my staff tells me, among the beneficiaries. And recently there is a focus on Africa, also in line with government priorities, but of course there is a lot to do in Africa on this front. So generally the initiatives start from our publishing our offering on the website, and there are also cases in which central banks come up to us and ask for specific help. We can host people, for instance, for stages, etc. We have been also changing over time gradually with a view to opening up cooperation within Europe. As Europe has gradually grown more integrated, we have been working with the other central banks, sister central banks in the European system of central banks, and often under the auspices of the EU Commission. And as I said before, at the end of an exchange, at the end of a technical assistance program, the experience that I personally obtained, and also my staff report to me, that it is never a one-way type of information flow. The information flows both ways, because in the end the teacher ends up learning from the experience of the people he or she has in front of him. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. A very good experience that Paolo shares. Rohit, Paolo talked about artificial intelligence, AI. India has also a national reform, or what we call AI mission. You have a semiconductors mission. So based on the experience, a little bit more on what as India you're doing to sort of how to build a talented workforce.
Sure. So in the interest of time, I'll keep it short so that we can get some questions in. But the three key areas, including these missions, in which the government has been quite focused on, the first, of course, starts with the research and innovation networks. There has been recently an initiative called Anusandhan National Research Foundation, which invests of about $5 to $6 billion US in building an innovation research ecosystem. There have been 10,000 innovation hubs in higher education institutions, more than 10,000 innovation labs at school level. So all of that has been geared towards building research and innovation so that we can have the talent pipeline. Then the second big area which the government is focusing on are these critical missions. So you mentioned India AI mission, which is 100 billion rupees investment in compute, in building models, and trying to find the application of AI in the society's most pressing problems. And then there is a semiconductor mission, which is 760 billion rupees of investment over the period of 5 years to try to build semiconductor industry, and in each of these missions, there are dedicated funds to build the talent pipeline to train not only the students, but also train the trainers. And then there is a critical mineral mission. So all of these missions sort of align the priorities of the society with the investment that the government is making. And the third, I think, the most important area in which the government has been working on, which I alluded to earlier, is to build the digital infrastructure which undergirds all of these efforts to make it at scale, to try to make it modular. So these are the three areas where the government have been investing heavily and have been trying to build human capital through these missions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I think this is also another very interesting experience, and reform is on the way, right? So it means that on the way, there will be more experience to share, some sort of hopefully success, but also some challenges that you can share with us once we have this established network among ourselves. So thank you very much. Now, Pili, I think I'm getting the message that yes, questions should be simple at this time of the day. So very simple question, Pili. So how do you see international collaboration between Europe and Asia driving progress in skills development? And what are the, if you can pick one or two areas that we can learn from each other?
Thanks. When preparing for this, I thought I have to say as a sort of framework that just in the last couple of months, what has happened on the sort of broad level EU-Asia. So you had all commissioners with von der Leyen in India on a visit. We had the first ever Central Asian Summit in Samarkand in April, just a month ago. And in Malaysia, there is currently now negotiations ongoing for the free trade agreement after 4 years. So I think this all really shows the very strong commitment of the new Commission. So it's easy to somehow then say that as examples in the skills sector, we of course have to follow the suit. I picked 2 examples for you of ETF's work. One on the mentioned Central Asia with 5 countries there. We do at the moment the first ever EU regional project supporting young people employability. And what I think there, for instance, a kind of learning, which I have found very important part of the 5-year work, which of course builds both on the employability and education, is to bringing in the vice ministers both from education and labor from all 5 countries that are part of the project. They meet annually to make sure that there is a leverage of all the work that then happens in the various ministries, education with the education providers and so on. So that's something where I believe the kind of approach that we took has gained a lot of appreciation. Another example, centers of vocational excellence. Had someone told 10 years ago that in the field of vocational education and training, you have this kind of bottom-up movement almost of hundreds of institutions, and there are some who are part who not, so they validate my comment, that really reach from Finland to sub-Saharan Africa, to Philippines, to Malaysia, I think, Bangladesh, Thailand, Nepal at the moment. So you have frameworks that are developed, frameworks in digital, green, entrepreneurial education, inclusion, but then really these education providers coming together on a platform. Just some weeks ago, we had about 100 delegates from 30 countries at the ETF on this. So we are facilitating this for the EU Commission as a work to internationalize vocational education and training. And here I think it's not only Asia, Europe, but it's global, and it seems to be really a movement, and from strategy up and from bottom up at the same time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Now we have some good ideas on how to, we have built already some partnership, but how to continue and widen our partnership and network between Asia and Europe. So that's excellent. 2000, so you have a large cohort of tertiary education students and graduates expecting Indonesia. There's a huge pressure, right? So just very, very, in a simple way, quickly, if you can just give maybe one example of a program that you are proud of and then you want to share.
Yeah, so we do have mentions a little about 10 millions in the tertiary education alone. And what we are facing at the moment is digital transformation is something, again, both brings opportunities and also challenges. But the way we are tackling is also, we try to link up with the key issue that we are trying to face financially. So Indonesia has been for long depends on the raw materials export as a form of the economic development. And this means that we need to add value to the raw materials, and then those needs to align with the educations. So we are seeing educations as a vessels, channels to also leverage our economic. So in that case, we are bringing more economy to the table, and one of which is a program in semiconductor and AI that we are working on. So this is now even led by the coordinating Ministry of Economy. So this is an interesting aspect because I've been called by the Council of Economy of the country and the coordinating Ministry of Economy more than the labor, for example, ministry. It's just because they try to link up between human capital development and the needs of industry within the country. So this needs to be aligned. And then even we are preparing, as we speak, even this morning I had a meeting that there will be a presidential decree just to ring fence development of human capital in the development of semiconductor. Because as we understand, digital transformation is not all about the digital, but also on the hardware side. And then we learn the silica that we are having in pretty abundant reserve in Indonesia is the backbone of future semiconductor because it helps the gallium nitride business improves within the upstream of semiconductor. So with this, we are in desperate needs of building partnerships. So the partnerships, both what we see is partnerships, international partnerships is for sure. And within Indonesia itself, we identify different tier of partnerships. So partnership with economy, strong industrial economy areas. So a few examples that we are working on, for example, with Google. So Google provides an education so yearly we have a free courses for around 9,000 talents. That was from last year data. And then we are building a platform for education with IBM. And then also Intel decided to open their IPI of Intel i7. So it's not the latest, but it's good enough for our students to understand on how to communicate through Intel chip. So we are working with industrial and also multinational companies to upscale and upskill our human labor capacity.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Fauzan. Very interesting. And again, reforms are underway, right? Means that there's a lot to share while it's been implemented. So I'm going to skip Shanti and then I give the floor to Bertrand. Bertrand, if you have maybe one example of AFD-supported project initiative that actually address the inequality aspect of educations and how skills development can be more inclusive.
It's an example we financed in Morocco, where we established a public and private partnership with the Moroccan authorities, whereby they funded the building of an infrastructure, and corporate companies, Moroccan corporate companies, committed to provide the skills and the teachers to run the corporate facility that was built by the Moroccan authorities, so that then they would train engineers in various fields such as medicine, energy field, transportation, and so on. So it was interesting because that was a good way to have the private sector and the public sector talking together and finding the right skills and the right jobs that were needed in the future to provide employment to the students that were trained in those facilities.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing this, again, interesting example from Morocco. Is it underway or is it?
It is underway, yes.
So, again, more to share. to hear success stories and also, I'm sure, some challenges that we may encounter on the way. So I would like to give at least an opportunity for our colleagues here to ask his question. At the same time, we have 7 minutes left, and I would like also for us to come to a sort of conclusion on how we really strengthen our partnership, what kind of network that we would like to strengthen between European institutions and Asia. So I'm going to ask also Shanti to do that. At the same time, if you can talk about the International Skills Forum. This year is also the ASEAN, ASEAN is having its year of skills, right? Organized in Malaysia. So that's also another opportunity for European institutions to share their perspective. PIRV, ETF, and ADB will have its semi-annual consultation just after this conference. So so we're going to work together to see concrete ideas of strengthening our partnership. But Shanti, over to you. I give you 2 minutes.
Thanks. So maybe I'll just mention the upcoming International Skills Forum. One of the things, like if we think about the role of international organizations, it's not just to work with individual countries, but also to bring the collective energies of policymakers, practitioners, implementers together, cross-share experiences, learn from each other, and bring the power of collective energies to be deployed in the region. So ADB also believes so strongly in the finance plus kind of approach, which means finance, which comes with technical and technical knowledge and technical assistance, knowledge partnerships, but also leveraging other blended finance, whether it's grants or other concessional loans, all for the benefit of the region that we work in. So Skills Forum is we do this once in 2 years. We bring all our stakeholders, all the policymakers from the countries in which we have either ongoing or planned education sector programs. So it's really a great knowledge sharing platform. It's like a knowledge clearinghouse kind of platform where we hear directly from practitioners and policymakers and showcase of projects that we support. And also we also bring an innovation marketplace, with the latest of whether it's edtech or other types of solutions that we offer to our partner countries. So this is just a good plug for that, and we very much welcome partnerships and expressions of interest and collaborations. So please reach out to us.
So this is going to be in December in the Philippines, and it's actually a nice time to come to the Philippines. It has also, Philippines is a wonderful country also. I mean, I'm saying this because it's the host country of the Asian Development Bank. People are very nice, competent, and then you have a beautiful nature to enjoy. So I'm still in time of yes, you can.
Before you open the floor, I would like to to give a commercial for the Network for Greening the Financial System. No money going anywhere. So I'm not in conflict of interest, although I am a member of the NGFS, so-called. The NGFS, the Network for Greening the Financial System, is a community of central banks and supervisors, but it has broadened over time to include a few observers like the International Monetary Fund and the Asian Development Bank, inter alia, the World Bank is there, etc. So what does this network do is to, in a nutshell, face the challenges of climate change and environmental degradation from a financial perspective. So it is helping members basically to tackle these issues from a prudential viewpoint, from a monetary policy viewpoint, etc. Membership has grown from probably 12 initial members in 2017 to over 130 these days. So it is, we were talking about ways to do networking, and I think this is you know, it's a specialized, a relatively narrow constituency, but still it's a great place for sharing information and also for capacity building.
Yeah, thank you very much. So if you say that ADB is a member, right? So wonder, yeah, observers, I wonder whether, yes, maybe not, because we are coming from the human social development sector, but I guess some of my colleagues will be, you do capacity building, right? So I think it would be great to see it in the Asia and the Pacific regions. So I'm losing my direction. Yeah, okay. So over to you. Oh, no. You have one question. One question.
I'm sure you heard, before. I was saying that I do apologize I'm late, because I realized that this was the most important meeting of all. If we don't take care of the children, if we don't know where we're going, for example, my family, I have kids, but they are good kids. Why should I study? I know more than the teacher, number one. Terrible, because they know very well, they read everything what they want. That is a big concern that is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, at least from the United States, where I lived for 50 years. Second, to the representative of Bank of Italy, that I have great respect because I'm a banker, 60 years old of banking. Why, and again I say in Italy, the school, why we don't teach the children financial education? Why? You are going around the world teaching everybody how they have to do the government and so on. And Bank of Italy, ladies and gentlemen, is very prestigious in the world. But why? We must install in the school financial. You know why? Because that means saving, that means investing, that means growing the wealth. It starts from there. Anyway, I'm sorry I even talked too long. Thank you.
So, quick answer. We do teach financial education in schools. We use the model that has been mentioned by some of my colleague speakers of teaching the teachers, basically. And we have been doing this for the better part of the 2000s, 10 years, more than 10 years probably. And the very good news that we heard in 2024 is that the government passed a law which is going to put financial education directly in the schooling system, which is very important because using the method that I was telling you about, we reached out to volunteers, basically, professors who volunteer to come to us, learn, and then give back to their pupils on a voluntary basis. And nowadays, we're still waiting for the final part of the legislation to be in place, but hopefully financial education is going to be part of the curriculum in Italian schools.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. It has been an excellent session. I'm not going to give 30 seconds and one question only.
Can you? Okay. So my question is almost a continuation of those remarks. So as you have stressed before, rapid advancement in technology, AI, etc., has made the job market one way or another unreliable. So my question consequently is what role do or should institutions like ADB, national banks, ministries, etc., or such organizations play in this regard, and what can these institutions offer to young people? Thank you.
Yeah, the question was 30 seconds. I'm not so sure the answer. So if you bear with me, anyone? So, oh yes, Billy.
you also had a word institution, so representing an EU institution that does work precisely, for instance, with the policy called Youth Guarantee, also outside the Europe, so EU countries, meaning that actually very precisely analyzing, let's take a country just randomly now here from the Western Balkans, so we help to analyze, or for that matter Egypt, very different number of young people, analyzing actually what is the job market like, so where do you have vacancies, analyzing what are the educational both levels and but also sectoral educational systems, so what are the young people actually studying and whether these match, and then addressing those through schemes that both are with the employment services that are targeting the young people and the education offer for the young people. And how boring it may sound, but I'm a very strong believer in this, for instance, that you need 10-year strategies for both, for the financial ministries, for the education and for the employment, so that they seriously actually answer to the needs that the young people have for decades to come. So I think evidence-based policies is something that one should cry for, and the banks should support them, and actually they increasingly do. And now I do my bit of marketing. A year ago, we did a publication with all these banks which was titled a bit provocatively, "Is Money the Solution?" And that was precisely to encourage the international financial institutions to invest more on skills, which should be exactly for the next generations, because then you get the skills that are needed in the future's job market. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Purvi. Anyone else? Yes.
More marketing.
Then just follow on that point, because I do agree that I think there should be a role that ADB International Banking itself beyond finance, and that includes knowledge exchange. I think that is pretty key, and that could, I mean, multi-layers, and then all the scaling, I mean, vertical, horizontals that the bank can do. So that is the role that we expect, that we will be part of the ecosystem.
Thank you very much. Coming from the client, of course, in a member country, we have to take it very seriously. Bank? Yes, Bertrand.
Yeah,
AFD.
just to mention that on our side, the way we can respond to your question is that we established an innovation fund for development 5 years ago at AFD. It is chaired by Esther Duflo, the Nobel Prize, together with her husband Abhijit Banerjee and Michael Kramer, and they specialized on random controlled trials, which enable them to look at different populations and compare ways of teaching. As an example, education is not the only field where their research is focused on, but they have good examples of education methods that were used in different countries and that can provide the kind of adaptability and that match the current environment where this was established. And what we do as development banks is scale up those projects that have a very specific assessment trials that prove that they give results, and then we can work with education ministers and transform those experiments into policies that then spread the results to an entire population of children.
Yeah, very good example. Thank you, Bertrand, of sort of contribution that institutions such as AFD or ADB can do, right? It's really robust evaluation, right? And based on that, you have evidence, you provide data, and that helps government, policy makers, and investors to actually put the investment and scale ups. Yes, Shanti.
30 seconds, yeah. So I think technology itself, like predictive AI for like looking at better labor market forecasting, but also much more on coaching and counseling for young people, because we find that this mismatch is not just from the market, but also from a personal point of view. The aspirations are very different from what kind of jobs youth want versus what's available. It's much more on coaching and mentoring as well.
Okay, anyway, so yeah, I mean, knowledge exchange, we would like to facilitate knowledge exchange. And then today we have, from our member countries, we have Indonesia and India, but obviously we have more. So it's within the region. And then obviously with AFD, ETF, and hopefully with also the bank, right? Banca Italia, sharing also the the rich experience coming from the European agency. I think that would be really great, that we would like to continue. And for us, it's always finance plus, as Shanti mentioned. We do invest, we lend, but it has to come. Nowadays, our clients demand more, so it's knowledge and access to knowledge and partnership. So we're very, very committed to do that. So with this, thank you very much for this very patient and enthusiastic audience. And also would like really to thank the panelists for bringing expertise, passion, enthusiasm, and then they're going. And you know the rule, no? When you are doing so well, you're gonna be asked to do more. So, so this is going to be the advisory panel of future, partnership that we would like to bring. Thank you very much again.